Welcome back to a deck tech video featuring a new brew, Sultai Urza Sword. So I played the blue-black Urza Sword deck a little bit, and I walked away feeling like I wish it could do a few things which I like. And those few things I like happen to be green. I felt like the burn matchup was a little bit harder than it needed to be, and I liked the idea of having Gilded Goose to kind of not only help the burn matchup, but also kind of accelerate your game plan and just give you more mana. I like having lots of mana, and I felt like the deck kind of struggled when it didn't have Urza. Going green also lets me go Veil of Summer, Assassin's Trophy, Uro, and Tireless Tracker. Now, I really liked Emry. Emry is actually what drew me into this archetype to begin with, because Mishra's Bauble is one of my absolute favorite of all-time cards, and Emry is really strong with Mishra's Bauble. So I'm going to start off by going over really quickly Mishra's Bauble. It looks like it doesn't do anything, right? Like, this card costs 0. You can sacrifice it to look at the top card of a player's library, and then you draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. What does Mishra's Bauble mean? Mishra's Bauble with a fetch land lets you target yourself. If you don't like the card, you don't play it, you don't crack the fetch land. You do crack the fetch land, sorry, if you want to get rid of the card. It's basically a 0 mana opt with a fetch land. With a Thoughtseize, you get to see what is your opponent about to draw. If you already know what's in their hand, you can bauble them, say, oh, I can't beat what they're about to top deck, I can't cast my Urza, I have to hold up Cryptic Command. What if you bauble, look at the top, and be like, oh, they're just drawing a land, it's not going to help them? Oh, I can tap out and do whatever I want. I can tap out for my Thopter combo now. Mishra's Bauble also triggers Revolt for Fatal Push. It empties your hand against Thoughtseize decks. Lets you manipulate little things like that. Also works really well with Emry, letting you cast Emry earlier, and Emry can just keep rebuying a Bauble every turn, so you can draw 2 cards a turn. Emry becomes Dark Confidant with Mishra's Bauble. Now, cool little things this deck has. Uro, if you have Emry and she mills you, if she ends up milling your Uro, you effectively draw the card because you have it in your graveyard, and you can use Uro's escape ability to get a very big late game threat. 6/6 that gains you life and draws you cards. All things I'm interested in doing. So I've kind of broke out the deck here, the way I'm looking at it. But I actually want to go back real quick about Mishra's Bauble. Mishra's Bauble also draws you a card at the beginning of next turn. So if you use Mystic Sanctuary, put like a Fatal Push on top of your deck, and then crack a Bauble, you're going to have that Fatal Push for next turn when you may need it to kill a Goblin Guide, to kill, who knows, a Dryad, whatever you need to kill it. So here's my mana producing lands. I have 11. As many basics as I can squeeze in to facilitate Astrolabe, and then I'm running 2 Sanctuaries. I am considering running a 3rd, and then I have 10 fetches to help with this tough mana base here. I am going 3 colors, and I want a ton of blue. I'm not running an Overgrown Tomb because I want every land basically to be an island. I have 2 non-islands in my whole deck here, effectively. So I want as many islands as possible for Mystic Sanctuary. So that's my fetch lands, my regular lands, and then I have Bauble, which I already talked about. My early game plans here, Goose and Astrolabe. Astrolabe lets me draw a card, which also works well with Mystic Sanctuary, and filters my mana while also being really cool with Urza. Already talked about Emry and Uro a little bit. Then I have 2 Whir of Inventions. So I haven't seen too many Sultai Sword decks. Most of the Sultai decks have been built around Emry and Uro. It's kind of like a value mid-range plan, but I really did like that Thopter combo in the blue-black variant, and I wanted to continue that in this one. Now what I don't have here is I don't have that 3rd Whir of Invention. Now Whir is really good at finding a specific piece, but I am not, this is not a toolbox deck main board. I'm not running too many things to grab. I'm not running bridge. I'm not doing all those things here. So I felt like these 5 slots was pretty solid to get me where I need to go, especially with all these redraws I have here. My interaction package is right here. I'm running 4 discard spells, 2 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition, and 2 Fatal Push to help my early game plan. And then my counter magic suite is 2 Metallic Rebukes, again just try to have an early accessibility for counter magic in case I need to, like if I'm playing Neoform or someone's trying to Titan a little bit earlier than I'd like, if I'm not set up with Archmage's Charm. Metallic Rebuke also works well with Bauble. I can actually go turn 1 island, Bauble, and hold up Metallic Rebuke, which is really, really sweet, because if my opponent doesn't play anything, I can always just crack the Baubles and still just get the free redraws. Archmage's Charm is really strong. Its worst mode is Divination. Its best mode is Steal a 1-drop, which makes the mono red matchup a lot better. And then also is a counter spell, which is the most common mode. And then Cryptic Command, which combos with Mystic Sanctuary to lock your opponent out of the game. My artifact flex spot I put in is Pithing Needle, which is a cool little thing you can whir for to stop like a Karn, stop Liliana the Veil, things like that. The sideboard, I'm work in progress at the moment. I'm still trying to figure out exactly my matchups and how I want to fight each deck going forward, post-board. I knew one of the things I wanted this deck to be able to do is do like a turn 1 Goose, turn 2 Ashiok. I thought that'd be really strong against the Titan-style decks. Veil of Summer seems really good in the mirror and really good against control decks, just to try to push through threats. Then I have an extra counter magic here for Aether Gust, which lets me target a permanent that's red or green. It's really good against Titan decks, really good against mono red, and just does a lot of little things here and there. Assassin's Trophy, also another reason to go Sultai, giving you access to the best removal spell we have access to in Modern. I can bring that against Tron decks, bring that in against control decks, everything except for aggro decks. I'm probably going to want this. If my opponent has a permanent I can't handle. I have a couple extra artifact things I can grab tutors here. Spellbomb, this could be a Tormod script, I'm not sure which I want it to be. Spellbomb has a little bit more push in that it could be brought in against like a Death Shadow variant, where I wouldn't do that with Tormod script. The thing that pushed me to Spellbomb instead of the Tormod script is that if I'm whirring for it, because it's got improvise, the triple blue is the hard part, and then I usually have 1 artifact in play anyway, otherwise I'm probably losing. So if I can, there's no difference here between whirring for 1 and whirring for 0 generally. So the Spellbomb had a slightly higher ceiling, so I put that one in. Grafdigger's Cage to help against decks like Neoform and also Coco decks, while also hosing Dredge. Of note, Grafdigger's Cage stops your own Emry, which is a little frustrating. Engineered Explosives, which can be brought in to deal with more troublesome permanents. Thanks to Arcum's Astrolabe, we can actually pretend like we're a 5-color deck here. But thanks to our actual 3-color mana base, EE's a pretty good card here. I have Dead of Winter, which can just wipe the board. Clear the board from whatever my opponent's trying to do. Usually go wide creature decks, that's what I want. Another Fatal Push, and a Battle at the Bridge. And Battle at the Bridge is actually my 4th Fatal Push. I'm using that to help with the burn, humans, and mono red matchup. And then finally, the lone card left to go over my sideboard here is Tireless Tracker. Tracker's been impressive. Tracker's a card that I'm actually looking at doing and saying, can I squeeze a Tracker in main board? And unfortunately, I think that I would have to cut like Uro for that. Or maybe cut Gilded Goose, cut my 3 Gilded Goose, go up a land or 2, and run a Tireless Tracker or 2. I don't know. I do know that if I'm doing the Cryptic Lock with Cryptic Command and Mystic Sanctuary, I can fall a little bit behind in not being able to still progress my own game plan. If I have a Tracker in play, getting a clue every turn, not a problem at all. It's still progressing my own game plan there. So Tracker's been good. Tracker's also really good in that, because I was trying Tezzeret, the blue-black one, but my opponents have been bringing in Disdainful Stroke against me to hit Urza. Or they've been bringing Mystical Dispute, which hits Urza. Both of those things hit Tezzeret. Tireless Tracker kind of gets around that. Tireless Tracker is just an all-around good card in a deck that's running 10 fetch lands. Then also one that cares about artifacts. Also, Tracker is able to give me a threat that does not die to graveyard hate. Because right now, Uro does nothing against like a Rest in Peace. Emry gets shut down. Sword of the Meek is absolutely useless without that. And Thopter Foundry's ceiling is significantly lowered if my opponent has graveyard hate. So, Tracker's been a very good threat. I've been thinking about running more Trackers so I can kind of just have this post-board plan against control decks and mid-range decks where I just have, a couple extra Trackers just throw out there and say, deal with this. You dealt with my Tracker? Great. Do you have another path or removal spell for my Urza now? So, also of note, most opponents aren't going to be keeping in things like Fatal Push against this deck. Like unless their plan is to Fatal Push Urza, which seems sketchy. They're not going to have a ton of removal spells against this deck, because removal spells aren't that great against this deck unless they're able to kill Urza. So, love to see more Tracker. Love to squeeze one in main board just because I absolutely love that card. She's an absolute all-star in any deck with 10 fetch lands. So, that's a deck tech. I've been thinking about Urza and Emry for a while. I wanted to go Sultai because I wanted to have Goose, and I wanted Emry I wanted the Emry Bauble connection. I wanted discard spells because I think they're really good right now. And I wanted to have a combo I can kind of fall back into that can win me a game from a weird spot. I didn't want to play 100% fair, so having these 5 slots in the deck kind of lets me push through that. So that's pretty much it. Things I'm considering: adding a 3rd Mystic Sanctuary, Tracker main. This Pithing Needle could go in the side. I'm thinking of maybe trying a Dismember instead of a push in the main board, or maybe even trying a Abrupt Decay or a Trophy instead of push. What else am I considering? I tried out a Mox Amber. It was okay. I actually originally started with 4 Goose, but I think that I don't want to have too much air. I think 3 Goose, because I never really want a second one, is probably perfectly fine. Sideboard is still up in the air. Right now this is a kind of a vanilla sideboard. It's geared towards making me better post-board in any given matchup, but it's not geared towards maximizing an efficient game plan in every single matchup, because I haven't played enough matches with this deck yet to know how I want to transition post-board in any single matchup. Also considering running a single Deprive somewhere in here, because Deprive's also pretty sweet in this deck, not only with Tracker, but also just rebuying your Mystic Sanctuaries. So that's the deck. Let me know what you think.